And ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it's a beautiful moment. We're going to present you with a beautiful production consisting of both videos and musical performances, special appearances by some of our C.O.P.S celebrities gathered here to highlight the past 40 years of rebuilding the shattered lives of law enforcement survivors. Please turn your eyes to the screens as we take a look back over the past 4 decades, ladies and gentlemen.
On June 26, 1978, Police Officer Albert M. Claggett IV and Police Officer James B. Swart stopped a car in Prince George's County, Maryland. The car matched the suspect description in the theft of laundry room coin boxes from a nearby apartment complex. The suspects were arrested. While processing the suspects, one of the men suddenly ripped Officer Claggett's weapon from his holster and opened fire. Officer Claggett and Officer Swart both succumbed to their injuries, leaving the area community and 2 families shattered.
And one day I said to one of the higher-ups in our department, I said, you have any idea on how Mrs. Claggett's doing? And he goes, she's doing fine. And I said, how do you know she's doing fine? And he says, because on the day we buried her husband, I gave her my business card and said, call if you ever need us, and she's never called. And he was really sold on the fact that she was doing well. Well, she wasn't doing well. She had 2 little babies. She was having a difficult time adjusting, dealing with the grief, dealing with the media, dealing with the trauma, dealing with the death. When we go back to Claggett and Swart, that was the catalyst that educated me and pushed me to the point where I realized that we needed to do a heck of a lot more.
Susie became more involved with her Fraternal Order of Police Auxiliary and started working with Trudy Chapman Radley, who shared her heart for doing more for officers and survivors. Together, the founding idea of C.O.P.S was born.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage co-founders who started it all, C.O.P.S Executive Director Emeritus Susie Sawyer and Ms. Trudy Chapman Radley, and keep your applause going for the first C.O.P.S National President, Ms. Lynn Bebo, surviving spouse of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Police Officer Robert Bolton, end of watch, October 6, 1982.
Nothing. Oh, please sit down, please. I've seen so many ugly pictures of me up here. What can I say? All this down here and all the other places. When C.O.P.S came to fruition, we became unstoppable. You've heard the song. We were Porsches. We had no brakes. If you haven't heard it, I'm dancing it on May 16th. We had to clear paths for survivors by moving barriers, including the hurdles that were before us because of law enforcement. I retired 12 years ago, but the emotions I felt during 28 service years, they exploded in my head today. Hearing the stories from survivors, and then finding out that Chris Cosgriff from ODMP was inspired to develop the Officer Down app there. because of Claggett and Swart. It was the same two officers that inspired me. That same loss, those two officers were from Prince George's County, Maryland, where my husband worked. And they were killed back in 1978. And yet, they were the catalyst to have these two programs develop in the late 1980s. I have the honor and privilege to have a date tonight. It's a gentleman by the name of Norman Brissett. He's from Montgomery County. Let me explain first, and then you can applaud. He's from Montgomery County, Maryland. He worked with me for 28 years and was responsible for all those buses going to every single event, and he's probably put 100,000 people on those buses. Norman Brissett, I love you. Stand up so we can recognize you. There are a lot of these hidden heroes that I know, I love, and they would do anything that I asked them to do in those early years. So many hidden heroes are now developing because these officers train their replacements to do what's right. My goal was always to help others live, laugh, and to love. People often say the C.O.P.S is my legacy. But while I take great pride in that, it's really all because of you. It's because of all of you. I want you to know, I took my passion and I made it happen. I did, and look what happened. Here it is. Thank you so much.
I've heard survivors compared to Phoenix in a way they raised up from the ashes to overcome the difficult situation to start something new. C.O.P.S is that Phoenix for so many survivors, and we intend to keep raising far well into the future. It's been my blessing to all of you on this new journey. Remember, we love you. Take your passion in this new journey, and God will lead you that way. God bless you all.
As one of those first 10 widows the first year, and then consequently one of the 110 survivors at the first Survivors Conference, I am grateful. I am so grateful for the life path that C.O.P.S has had there by my side for every step I take. As the first national president, the vision of C.O.P.S was to make sure the support of survivors never, ever had a time limit. I'm standing here 40 years later as proof of that vision, which became a promise to so many sitting here, right now, in this room. Thank you.
The deaths of Swart and Claggett sparked a desire to do more within Susie and Trudy. These two became a part of the driving force that created the National Peace Officers Memorial Service in 1982.
1983, some widows showed up, needed to just sit and talk. If you don't meet with other police survivors, you can't talk it out because these other folks responding don't understand. And that eventually turned out to be the miracle of cops.
And I remember calling Susie and saying to her, thank you so much for the time that we had together in DC and for bringing me other women that I could connect with. But we really need our own organization. And as Susie and only Susie can say, she yelled, damn, you're right.
Just a year later, 110 survivors gathered at the first Police Survivors Conference and unanimously voted to start C.O.P.S.
Initially, we just needed to have money to get ourselves off the ground. And getting that first grant was huge.
One night, while talking about the organization's need for funding, Susie's mother suggested she call an old family friend, Charlie Lauer, who served as general counsel with the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Susie was skeptical, but called Charlie anyway. And just a short while later, the two were standing in front of Lois Harrington, the Assistant Attorney General.
After about 15 minutes, Lois Harrington looked at Charlie and said, Charlie, I think we need to fund this. We got $174,000 federal grant, thought we had the world by the tail.
Fantastic. We are so thankful that Charlie answered that call and made a big deal out of that. That is where the history began, but it is not where it ends. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Director of the Bureau of Justice Assistance and an advocate for law enforcement profession in its entirety, Mr. Carlton Moore.
It is really dark up here. I just want to say that. The Bureau of Justice Assistance has been proud to partner with C.O.P.S. for almost 40 years to support the surviving families and co-workers of our nation's fallen heroes. Through National Police Week, the hands-on programs, law enforcement trainings, and providing assistance with the Public Safety Officer Benefit Program. Happy 40th anniversary to all of you at C.O.P.S. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome the C.O.P.S. counselors who between them have over 50 years of supporting law enforcement survivors at C.O.P.S. They're known as the mentals, which I thought we just said behind their backs, right? But I found out that this is what they're known as. They are known as the C.O.P.S. mentals, Dr. Kathy Thomas and Miss Angie McCowan, ladies and gentlemen.
Ooh, you can't see. Come over here by me, Kathy Thomas. Good evening. Kathy and I have been working with survivors through the hands-on programs and National Police Week for, it seems like well over 3 decades. On behalf of myself and Kathy and all of the counselors, many of whom are in this room tonight, we have been proud and actually very grateful to have been a part of the healing and growth for so many of you in this room tonight.
I see faces in this room that I met when you were 6 years old at kids camp. And now you're here and you have kids of your own. I see faces of people who once thought they would never be able to smile again. And yet here you are, laughing, loving, and thriving. As I enter retirement this year, I want to say thank you for inspiring me and allowing us to be a part of your journey.
With a base level of funding secured, the organization began to grow. More survivors attended the National Police Survivors Conference. Soon, it became obvious that survivors needed more, and C.O.P.S. found a way to deliver something a little different: the hands-on programs.
The first hands-on program was C.O.P.S. Kids Camp.
Good morning, campers!
first camp we had like 31 people. It's like, oh man, I don't know if this is gonna work.
Kids Camp not only worked, but it began changing lives. The next year, Parents Retreat began.
And it was the widows that said, you know what, we need to do something for the parents of the officers.
Spouses Retreat followed soon after, with siblings and adult children's not far behind. Each year, more survivors begin to trust cops to help them heal and find others who understand. During this time, cops also created the Traumas of Law Enforcement trainings aimed at helping officers and departments deal with the death of an officer.
It lets everyone see the human side of one another. An officer doesn't have to be 10 foot tall and bulletproof. It's okay for you to come up and talk to me.
In the early 2000s, longtime supporter of cops, Cam Flynn, came to Susie Sawyer with an idea. The Cops Walks became a unique event, a 25-mile challenge with survivors receiving peer support, while also being able to help others by gathering donations to help cops grow.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'd like to welcome to the stage the two surviving spouses, past National President, Miss Debbie Geary, surviving spouse of David Strakowski, end of watch November 28, 1988, and Derwin Magruder, surviving spouse of Elizabeth Magruder, end of watch August 29, 2002. Ladies and gentlemen.
I once compared being COPS national president to what it would be like to be crowned Miss America. I can tell you, COPS president was so much better. I took the death of my husband, the father of our young sons, and found healing by simply supporting and walking with my fellow survivors. We learned in the early years of this organization that grief doesn't have a time limit, and neither does the support of cops.
As survivors, we all had plans with our officers. Becoming a single father to our son was definitely not part of it. But cops was there for me then, and they are still here for me and my son. My son Devin grew up with cops and is thriving. I stand before you healthy, happy, and always ready to give back to the organization who helped me give back my life.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for participating so well in that. You do have that cop spirit. You make me very proud out there, no doubt about it. Ladies and gentlemen, we could not do what we do if it was not without important partners. Please welcome to the stage the National President of the Fraternal Order of Police, Patrick Yose, and the Chairman of the Law Enforcement National Memorial Fund, Miss Lori Sharp Day. Ladies and gentlemen.
I began my law enforcement career and my membership in the Fraternal Order of Police in 1984, the same year that COPS started. And I can tell you that planning the memorial service for the Fraternal Order of Police and working alongside COPS and working alongside an army of soldiers of honor has been the high point of my life, in my career. And I want to proudly say that the Fraternal Order of Police, and I know I speak on behalf of all of our members when we say we proudly stand by all of our survivors and are proud of the work and a relationship we have with COPS. Happy 40th anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. The engraving of the names on the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund wall each year is no easy task. It is one we could not do without our partnership with COPS. The memorial, your memorial, our nation's memorial, is a sacred place for so many to grieve and honor their heroes. When we call those names during the candlelight vigil,
The honor echoes throughout the mall and throughout our nation. The promise is never to forget those heroes in the hearts of everyone in attendance. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, a big welcome to the stage for retired Indianapolis Police Deputy Chief Danny Overly, one of the original advisors to the C.O.P.S organization and whose support has never wavered. And also from the super smash hit show Fox and Friends First, a great friend of C.O.P.S and a great American patriot, Todd Pyro.
Good evening. Throughout my 25-year law enforcement career, I can attest that no officer ends their career the same person they were when they started. You can't unsee things. You can't unhear things. You can't unsmell things. This job changes you, and C.O.P.S has taken such a vital role to support our officers through it all. From the beginning of Traumas of Law Enforcement, C.O.P.S has helped over 21,000 officers across our nation.
I've been a friend of C.O.P.S for 5 years now, but a supporter of law enforcement and their families my entire life. I am proud to be able to tell your stories to the entire nation and shine the light on the impact that this organization truly makes. Thank you.
Giving back to other survivors became even more important as our nation faced the horrific tragedy of September 11th, 2001. Thousands of people, including a huge number of law enforcement officers, died on 9/11, and hundreds more continue to die from illnesses related to responding to September 11th.
And so then when they started saying that, they knew it was going to affect a lot of lives of law enforcement officers, it got like, what the hell, how do you handle this catastrophe?
I remember looking at the faces of the first responders. It was a hard thing to look at, to see all these people walking around with blank stares on their faces. To know that most people who were on scene working that day had lost a loved one, a colleague, a friend, somebody in that very attack.
I was there for several days and able to hold their hands and pray with them and let them know that, this is the worst of the worst, but we're going to get through it.
With the massive influx of families, the organization quickly faced its largest National Police Week yet.
Leading Police Week in May of 2002, I went into it. There are going to be more people than ever at these events.
September 11th also kicked off a new era, where taking care of our peacekeepers became more and more important, leading to the start of Coworkers Retreat in 2010.
But going to Coworkers, I met people who had been there and they had done that, and they came out on the other side through resiliency and education and training and counseling and all these other things. And once I let the walls down, it literally changed my life.
As National Police Week grew, so did the organizations who planned it together.
It got to the point where there were 3 organizations that were planning events for National Police Week. And one of the smartest things that we could do was come together as one in what we call the National Police Week Committee. It made no sense having each one of the 3 organizations send out information to the survivors when it could go out in one neat package where they could read about everything going on in National Police Week.
The more Police Week and C.O.P.S membership grew, the more support the organization needed.
LEU chose C.O.P.S in 2009 because of their dedicated work on projects that directly help survivors, law enforcement officers, and families of law enforcement officers. Today, we have LEU members that participate in their hands-on programs as counselors, mentors, staff members, and we couldn't be happier for that.
The mission behind what Concerns of Police Survivors does is so important. This organization is actually one of the most important organizations out there for our law enforcement families.
I've had the opportunity to walk hundreds of miles with the families, co-workers, and significant others of fallen officers. I've heard many, many times the positive and sometimes life-changing differences that Concerns of Police Survivors provides.
Service is a calling, a lifelong dedication and commitment to helping others.
Your resilience echoes through generations, a legacy of hope amidst tragedy's shadow. Our unwavering support walks beside you, illuminating the path forward with empathy.
I love COPS. I'm grateful to be part of their family.
We are happy to be here in celebration of COPS' 40-year anniversary.
Our hope is that you will look to us as a member of your support team.
And we are happy to support Concerns of Police Survivors' important mission of rebuilding shattered lives of our law enforcement fallen heroes.
And I proudly support Concerns of Police Survivors.
Welcome to the stage, both longtime friends and supporters of COPS, President of Law Enforcement United, Wallace Chadwick, and from Streamlight, he needs no introduction in this room, but ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Clayton French.
Whew. You're a flashlight guy. Where does the lumen count on them lights? For the past 15 years, I've ridden with my brothers, sisters, and survivors on the road to hope with Law Enforcement United. Our promise to you remains: we ride to honor the fallen and to remember and support the survivors.
My late father, Harry French, and the folks at Streamlight have been touched by the journey of law enforcement survivors and the dedication of the COPS organization to support them. Streamlight proudly continues to walk alongside survivors to let them know their sacrifice will never be forgotten. I believe I speak for all the supporters of COPS in saying happy 40th anniversary.
After nearly 30 years of service, COPS's co-founder and executive director emeritus stepped down, and the organization was faced with the nearly impossible task of replacing Susie Sawyer.
When Susie was retiring and we needed to find a new executive director, we launched a national search.
That search brought us to retiring Deputy Chief Diane Bernhard.
She just was very down to earth, open, and you could tell that she was caring. And you know, that's the piece that really I think makes the person in that role successful, because this is a different type of organization. You're dealing with people who are grieving.
Diane is a surviving coworker. Her friend and coworker Molly Thomas Bowden was shot and killed in the line of duty in 2005. It was Molly's parents who introduced Diane to COPS.
And we got so much support out of the counselors and the COPS people at Parents Retreat that, to tell you the truth, I felt special.
He pulled me aside and he said, Diane, he goes, I need to tell you about this thing that happened to me. And I said, what happened to you, Dave? And he said, I went to this retreat. He goes through this organization called COPS. And he told me after that, in that conversation in that hallway, he said, because of COPS, I think I'm going to be okay. And I remember thinking as I went to retire that I want to do something that could help people. And when I saw the opening for COPS, I knew exactly what it was because of that conversation with Dave Thomas.
And I called Susie Sawyer up and I told Susie, I said, well, I'm going to put a plug in for Diane. She'd be great. And Susie said, well, I think so too, but I got to let the board decide.
Diane and the National Board focused on growing COPS and expanding the offerings for survivors and law enforcement, while the number of survivors rapidly increased.
One of the things that we did very early on at COPS is we looked at what we were currently doing and where there were gaps of services, like what needs did survivors have that we weren't meeting yet.
More retreats were added to cover all survivorships, extra traumas of law enforcement training locations, a law enforcement wellness conference, and the Surviving to Thriving conference. Through times of negative opinions towards law enforcement, COPS worked with law enforcement partners to create Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
The partnership with all of these organizations helped us grow into the organization that we are today, and it helps us ensure that every survivor can know about COPS and can get the help and the services that they need.
And it was that newfound level of awareness that helped COPS adapt quickly when the COVID pandemic hit, which brought the largest number of fallen officers since the inception of COPS and forced the postponement of National Police Week for the first time ever.
Everything changed. One of the things that I'm proud of just by leading the organization
keeping it moving forward. At that time, a lot of things were put on hold, and a lot of other organizations and other companies, they just didn't know how to react. They couldn't adapt fast enough.
As soon as survivors could safely gather again, a multi-year, combined National Police Weekend was planned, with more than 600 officers being honored in October 2021. Shortly after, the official criteria of line-of-duty death was expanded to include officers who die by suicide in certain circumstances.
Being able to adapt to the world changing around us is what has made C.O.P.S successful over an incredible 40 years. The mission of rebuilding shattered lives never has and never will waver.
Ladies and gentlemen, the lady who took us to the next level, Executive Director Diane Bernhardt, and C.O.P.S National President Connie Moyer.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you. You know, much to my dad's chagrin, I always kind of thought I might be a cop, just like him. But afterwards, being able to serve survivors, like Molly's parents, Dave and Bev, and like every one of you in this room, has truly become my life's biggest accomplishment and has given me so much. I consider Susie's life's work my baby to nurture and to grow for current and future survivors that we know will need C.O.P.S. I would be 100% remiss as part of this 40th anniversary celebration not to also give a huge shout out to the most amazing staff over all the years in the world. Collectively, you have poured your heart into this organization. Thank you.
What an honor it is to be your national president during this 40th anniversary year. From one survivor to another, I have your back. Just like so many before me have had mine. We can go through our journeys together with our faith, our family, and our friends. Our heroes will never be forgotten. And in your time of need, I ask each of you to reach out to your hands and let us pull you up as C.O.P.S has done for 40 years.
C.O.P.S is probably the only organization that I know of that doesn't want to grow. But the reality is that is not our reality, and that we will continue to grow. And so our job now is to make sure that C.O.P.S is as healthy as it can be, that it's sustainable, that it will be around for survivors for as long as they need us for the next 40 years or longer.
I truly believe that the strength of this organization is the survivors walking arm in arm, locking together, moving forward. And so it takes the whole body of this organization. It takes the chapters. It takes the national office. It takes the board. It takes everybody walking arm in arm.
And as a family that we could continue to grow together in love and unity and to be strong. Even though we lost our loved one, we're gonna always have them in our heart.
You know, there's a whole lot of people in the future that don't know that they need us. But guess what? We're going to be there for them.
I want to be there to help others. I want to be there to help the moms, the children, the siblings, the spouses. I want to be there for whoever needs me at any point in time, any day or night. I just want to be there.
We're not just here today. We're not just here tomorrow. We're here today, tomorrow, all day, any day, every day you need us.
My passion for helping others has grown, and my hope for the next 40 years is that it will continue growing, not only for me, but for other survivors. Together, we can make a difference.
Congratulations on 40 years, and here's to another 40 years.
Take my hand, and I'll pull you up. And we will be here for you forever.
Wow, Ladies and gentlemen, incredible. We are getting close to the end here, but I want you to make sure we give a warm welcome to past National COPS President Emilio Miyares, surviving son of Hialeah, Florida motor officer Emilio Miyares, end of watch November 6, 1986, and Sofia Marmolejo, surviving daughter of Chicago police officer Eduardo Marmolejo, end of watch December 17, 2018, ladies and gentlemen.
I was just 7 years old when my dad was killed. I've grown up with the support of my COPS family, and I'm beyond grateful for all those survivors who have paved the way from our past. I have been honored to do my part in leading COPS in the present, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Sofia Marmolejo, and I am 8 years old. My dad was my hero, and I love COPS Kids Camp because I made a lot of friends and there's so much activities. I promise to take care of our future because I am the future.